Breaking news out of Japan. A Japan Airlines plane burst into flames after it collided with a Japanese Coast Guard aircraft on the runway in Tokyo. This new video shows the moment of impact after the passenger jet landed at the airport just hours ago.
Planes collide and catch fire at Japan's busy Haneda Airport. 5 losing their lives and hundreds evacuated safely. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you the actual video footage and articles so you can see it for yourself, this breaking news coming out. And one of these planes was actually on its way to provide relief for the earthquake devastation happening in Japan right now. I shared it with you live as soon as it came out, the breaking news. Stick around to the end for more updates on that. But take a look. Aftershocks rattle Japan as the toll rises after these powerful earthquakes. And we heard in a 90-minute span, over 21 earthquakes rocked Japan. And earthquakes were felt all over the world. And actually this morning, an earthquake was felt in Washington, D.C. here in the United States. But I'm going to be sharing with you the latest video footage and articles so that way you can see it for yourself. Now, before we dive in, do me a quick favor. If you appreciate the breaking news updates, keeping you up to speed on everything, don't forget, smash that like button. Just takes a second to stay up to date. Hit the subscribe button. Turn on that notification bell. Totally free. Why not? And if you want to also stay connected outside of social media platforms, be sure to join my newsletter that we just created, www.steveramnews.com, to stay connected outside of social media platforms. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right in.
Breaking news out of Japan. A Japan Airlines plane burst into flames after it collided with a Japanese Coast Guard aircraft on the runway in Tokyo. This new video shows the moment of impact after the passenger jet landed at the airport just hours ago. And you can see in the video the Japan Airlines plane bursting into flames as it goes down the runway there. 5 crew members on the Coast Guard plane were. The captain is in critical condition. The crew were preparing to fly to Western Japan to try to help with earthquake relief. Nearly 400 passengers and crew were on the Japan Airlines flight. They were able to escape. 17 people reportedly were hurt. Let's bring in CNN's Will Ripley. He joins us live from Tokyo. So Will, what's the latest here? What are you learning?
Rahel, just within the last couple of hours, the Japanese Prime Minister sending his condolences to the families of those 5 Coast Guard crew members. The Coast Guard has a base right next to the Haneda Airport, which sits in the heart of Tokyo, just 15 or 20 minutes drive from where I'm standing right now. It's one of the best airports to fly into in Japan because of its centralized location right on the bay, and you have a beautiful view of the city when you fly in. But on this very busy day, a day that hours after Japan was rocked by a massive earthquake, you had this Coast Guard crew, 6 people on the plane total, trying to get relief supplies to areas hard hit that desperately need the help. And at the same time, you had a packed Japan Airlines jet that was arriving from Sapporo, which was right in the prime of their tourist season up there on the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido. This plane had 367 people on board, including 8 children under the age of 2. So you had parents with their kids. You had 12 crew members and a fully packed plane. And just before 6 p.m. local time, as this aircraft was landing on the runway, the Coast Guard aircraft was also on the same runway. How did that happen? That is the focus and going to be the focus of an extensive investigation here in Tokyo, a nation that prides itself on public transportation safety, a nation that's never had a single fatality and decades of running bullet trains at hundreds of miles an hour. And yet somehow, for whatever reason, that reason to be determined, these 2 aircraft had a very, very violent collision that resulted in a huge fireball. Both of the planes were in flames in a matter of seconds, and passengers who were on the Japan Airlines jet described black smoke filling the cabin. They were terrified. Parents, trying to keep their kids as safe as they could, wondering if they were going to make it out alive. A lot of passengers saying they just didn't think that they would, especially when the exit doors, according to the passengers, in the rear and middle parts of the aircraft were not working properly. But yet, through the front exit doors, and there's video of this that's emerging on social media, people, one by one, streamed out of each side of the front of the aircraft, and in just a matter of seconds, all 400 or so people who were on that aircraft made it off alive. 17 of them in the hospital with injuries. But an extraordinary thing when you look at the video of that plane that was then very quickly fully engulfed in flames, still smoldering on the runway. It took firefighters well over an hour to get the fire under control. Haneda Airport, a very busy hub, of course, shut down right now and likely to be shut down for quite some time as they investigate exactly how this happened, as they look into the cause of this. But still, the fact that so many people, hundreds of people, were able to walk away, even as Japan mourns the loss of these 5 Coast Coast Guard crew members. It is truly a remarkable moment at the beginning of 2024, which has been very rough for Japan, given the earthquake first and then this collision on the runway right in the heart of the Japanese capital, Rahel.
And an aviation correspondent, Pete Muntean. And Pete, when you look at those pictures, when you see that plane in flames, it's a near miracle that everyone on board was able to get out. What do you see when you look at it?
What I see, and you see the impact there in the first 2 seconds of that video, is really a wake-up call, not only for aviation in Japan, but also around the world, and especially in the United States. We'll get to that in a second. Japan Airlines Flight 516, this was a Airbus A350, only 2 years old, came into land on runway 34 right there at Haneda. What is interesting here is that we know from the track of the plane that this plane was coming into land and the plane behind it had to go around. We do not know the track specifically because there's no data available from that Japan Coast Guard Dash 8 airplane. 6 people on board, 5 of them are. We know that the captain of that flight is in critical condition. What is really striking to me is the communication and the coordination by the crew that made this evacuation so successful. Not just the pilots, but all of the crew, the flight attendants especially. Japan prides itself on efficiency. They got these people out in a very short period of time. There you can see the 2 airplanes, and this big size difference here. A Dash 8 is a much smaller airplane, although it clearly did a lot of damage to the front of that Airbus A350. This is the first time an Airbus A350 has ever experienced a hull loss, meaning the airplane is completely destroyed. What is clear right now is that there was a huge safety failure here in a culture that is incredibly safety conscious. The Japanese airlines had a spate of accidents in the 80s and 90s. They really cleaned up their act, but is also clear is that this was something where there was an airplane in the wrong place at the wrong time. And now the question is where the confusion took place. Was it a confusion on the part of air traffic control, or was it confusion by one of the crews involved in that Japan Coast Guard flight or in that Japan Airlines flight? So this is something that investigators really need to look at. And of course, they will listen to the air traffic control tapes and the communication there to see if anything was garbled. What is really interesting here in the United States is that there has been incident after incident of airplanes in the wrong place at the wrong time on the surface of an airport. They are known officially as a runway incursion, and we have seen 7 of these incidents get so serious that the National Transportation Safety Board has been involved. JFK, Austin, Boston, Burbank, the list goes on. This incident really immediately reminds me of the Austin incident where a FedEx flight was coming into land at Austin Bergstrom last February. Southwest Airlines flight was lined up on the runway ready to take off. It was in bad weather conditions. It was dark. It was before dawn, and the FedEx crew caught the error and went around. In this case, of course, it was dark. It was about 5:47 p.m. local time, although the weather was pretty good. And now the question is whether or not this Japan Airlines flight crew was able to see this plane in front of them and why it was there. So a lot of big questions here, and investigators really have their work cut out for them, John.
So there you have it. Now, to get more information regarding that crash, be sure to check out the article linked in the description below. And as we heard, one of those planes was actually on its way to provide relief for the earthquakes taking place in Japan right now. And take a look at this article that came out today from ABC News that says, as of 9 a.m. on Tuesday this morning, about 17 hours after the initial quake, the Japan Meteorologist Agency has recorded an additional 147 earthquakes with a magnitude of 1 or higher near the epicenter, the agency said in a statement. Most of those were weaker quakes, with 118 under the magnitude of 3, officials said. Now, if you missed it, be sure to check out the video footage and see the earthquake and the waves coming in this video right here next, as I reported it to you live. But you guys, that is the latest information. As more comes out, I'll be sure to share it here on the channel. But with that being said, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.